All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakah Kodash. I want to say and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders, a great millstone for teaching this word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And send salutations to the elect, the hopeful elect, fellow brothers and sisters that also believe in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Hey, I'm my brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another lesson. And this lesson was a small delve into the history of the dispersion of the Jews. All right, because when we read these precepts, growing up in this world, living in this world, and understanding religion through the eyes of our captors and these religions such as Christianity, they tell you that basically uh, um, salvation is a universal thing, that the word in which Yahweh Shai was speaking was a universal thing going out to all the world, and that's not true. So you have individuals like Vocab Malone who pushes this basically this universalism through his so-called apologetic um, viewpoint of the Bible. All right, and he's made it his life's mission and goal to try to debunk the true Israelite, mainly the Israelites coming out of One West. All right, and as being a member or part of Great Millstone, I know that we stem from One West. All right, but you got to understand something. The scriptures, and we talked about this over the weekend at camp. We were speaking about, I think we spoke about it at camp. Anyway, um, the the word of the Heavenly Father is exclusively given to the Israelites. Now, we weren't always together as a nation. We got dispersed. We got scattered about because that was one of the curses that was levied upon us for our wickedness. All right. One of the curses said that we would be scattered into these different nations. When you read the book of matter of fact, Deuteronomy, because this is one book that they, vocab alone, and they pretty much focus on the precept where it speaks about captivity. I think this is the 68th chapter. 68th verse. They speak about that, but then they they try to debunk the fact that slavery, chattel slavery, was written in the scriptures. It happened over time, and then on top of that, we went into captivity many other times prior to this current captivity we're into today. All right, and going into captivity, we lost who we were. We got destroyed as a people. But one of the curses that was levied upon us is that we were going to be scattered amongst these nations, worshiping after their idols. All right, let me get that real quick. This is Deuteronomy 28:64. And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And this wasn't a one-off event. Excuse me. This wasn't a one-off event. This happened over time. And just because we were scattered doesn't mean that, each time we were scattered that Jake forgot who they were. But this last time we did. This last time this last captivity that we're currently in, we truly forgot who we were, over time and dispensation. All right. And so living amongst these nations, we were going to be scattered amongst them, and we were going to what? Follow after their idols and after their customs. All right. You follow their gods, you follow their customs, and whatever comes along with that, and in their cultures. And it says, there you shall serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. All right. Then you go to verse 68. It speaks about, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, Vocab Malone and other detractors from the truth, or they focus on Egypt, ancient Egypt, which the land of Montezarium, which is called Egypt today, in Africa, Northeast Africa, right? They focus on that land. But this Egypt was speaking about a spiritual Egypt. And he said, bring Egypt and with ships. So let me read it again. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. So we're in a spiritual Egypt. And how do we get over here? We came over here in ships, namely the southern kingdom. And then you had the northern kingdom going back into Europe with ships, in ships, all right? In ships, not with ships, but in ships, right? And they were in captivity right along with Judah. This is the house of Israel. The whole house was here, is here, okay? And so this is where they get tripped up. And it says, thou shalt see it no more. And by the way, wherever I speak unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. Now, I believe vocab Malone uses, Salakia, I don't know what that is. I believe vocab Malone uses, what's going on? What's going on? Salakia. Yeah, I believe vocab Malone uses a certain translation to make it sound weird. Mainly the NLT. It says, then the Lord will send you back to Egypt in ships, to a destination I promise you would never see again. Because the Lord told us that we wouldn't have to go back into Egypt once he brought us out of there. We wasn't supposed to go back down there. He delivered us from that. But we came into the spiritual Egypt, which is America, spiritually Sodom and Egypt. There it says, there you will offer to sell yourselves to your enemies as slaves, but no one will buy you, which this is not what this precept is supposed to, this is not the understanding of this precept right here. This NLT went off, all right? And then vocab Malone uses that to say, well, you guys didn't openly sell yourself. No one sells themselves into slavery, particularly hardcore slavery, right? No one with sense would do that, right? We weren't offering our bodies. We were taken, all right? And that word for abayu is really redeem. It goes back to the word to redeem a person, right? Right? That word for shall buy is quatna. Come on, man. This ain't nothing but Satan, man. It's nothing but Satan. Come on, man. The Hebrew word there is quatna, which is to acquire, to create, possess, acquire his people, acknowledge, to be bought, to cause, to possess, to be purchased. Right here, this is what I wanted. To recover and be redeemed, right? So ultimately, it was about being recovered and redeemed, and no man did that for us except Yahushua. But when he comes back, he's gonna get us. He's gonna redeem us. Right now, we're being spiritually redeemed. All right, but anyway, let me go back to my point because I want to speak about the diaspora. All right, so I was watching Apostle Gabar's video, which is called "Get the Facts Straight," the Cornelius Controversy, and it's a beautiful lesson. Brothers should go to his page, Daily Edification 4, Daily Edification 4, and you could be edified. Now, while I was listening to this video, you know, the elder apostle was going into Acts 10, which we're going to go into that too, and the spiritual, because we were speaking about this at camp. We went into Acts at camp on Sunday. All right, so that's all spiritual that this is coming out, you know, because the whole controversy behind Cornelius is that basically, according to vocab Malone and these world Christians, they believe that Cornelius was just some regular heathen that supposedly feared the Lord, right? He was a natural Gentile, but he wasn't. He was an Israelite that was scattered. His foreparents, his fathers, his mother were Israelites scattered during the Hellenization period. Because by the time Yahushua came on the scene, and then obviously he went back to the Father, and then the apostles had the Acts of Apostles happening. By the time that happened, we had already been scattered. You know, we came out the Babylonian. Well, we were in the Roman captivity during this time, and prior to that, we were in the Greek captivity. Prior to that, we were in the Persians and the Mede captivity. Prior to that, we were in the Babylonian captivity. So you had Israelites scattered about, but you still had a great population of Israelites living in Israel. All right, and that was the house of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, for the most part. All right. So Cornelius, he was a product of Hellenization. All right, that's all what it was. And when the Acts of the Apostles came in Acts 10, this is Paul Peter and the rest of the apostles, now they open salvation. The word was being open. The gospel was being opened up into them, and Cornelius being one of the first. All right, Cornelius, and then even Yahweh Shai had an incident when he was during his ministry, where Israelite of the dispersion came seeking healing for her daughter. I believe it's for her daughter. All right, but at that time it wasn't her time yet. But the Lord still had mercy and healed her, since she was healed through her faith. Right. So she was an Israelite that was coming out, but she believed. And likewise, what you come to find out after reading and looking this up, you had a lot of Israelites that were scattered outside of the land of Israel, outside of Jerusalem, and they heard the gospel and they believed. Versus you had a bunch of Israelites living in Israel, growing up in the national center for the Israelites, the house of Judah. We're talking about the house of Judah right now, all right? Who grew up with the culture, who grew up with the history, the knowledge of who they were and are, right? But then a lot of them didn't accept. You had a lot of Jakes that did, but we're talking about the hierarchy, and then their minions. So what happened was the Lord, he provoked them to jealousy. Let me get that real quick. He said, I will provoke you to jealousy. Right? This is Salakia. Romans chapter 10, the points in 19. I'll read it 18. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. Right? And why is that? Because, matter of fact, let me read up. This is verse 16. Romans 10 and 16. But they have not all obeyed the gospel, for Isaiah saith the Lord, who have believed our report. So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily, their sound went into all the earth, and it went into all the known earth. That sound was his truth, which is gospel. And their words unto the ends of the world. Why did it go to the ends of the world? Because you had Israelites scattered to the furthest reaches of the earth. All right, of the known world back then. Right, it says in the NLT, the message has gone throughout the earth, and the words to all the worlds. Right. So what was the message? The gospel, the good news, salvation for Israel, Yahweh Shai, his sacrifice, the promises. All right, the report. Okay, and it says, but I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you. Right? And we were those that people, we were a no people, right? And we were called foolish amongst these people because we weren't following our natural customs. We were far removed from it. So we were like a no people. We weren't a part of these heathen nations. We were scattered. Truly, we weren't. We were just copying them and following their cultural ideals, right? Mainly, we're speaking about Hellenism tonight, right? Hellenism, right? So we were like a no people. And Jake in Israel and Jerusalem didn't want to accept the Israelites that were scattered, Let me read this in the NLT, what this says. It says, but I asked, did the people of Israel really understand? Yes, they did. For even in the time of Moses, so even Moses prophesied this, I will rouse your jealousy through people who are not even a nation. I will provoke your anger through the foolish Gentiles. And those Gentiles were us. See, Vocab Malone, all these other people, proponents for modern day Christianity, when they talk about, salvation's for everybody, God, the Bible's for everybody, they get mad at us when we talk about going to the exclusiveness of the scriptures, exclusivity of the scriptures. They get upset. They get offended. But it tells you right here, it says to a people who are not even a nation. Now, there's nothing but nations out here. All these different nations, we talk about them all the time. The Edomites, the Moabites, Ammonites, Hamites, all of them, Japhites. Those are nations of people. But who are the no people? Who are the no people? Who are the people that were considered a no people? It was us that were in a Gentile state of mind. All right? And so this word Gentiles, it really goes back. I mean, this word Gentile is for the Israelites that were scattered around the world, all right, into all these different nations. And that's why when the Jews saw the Israelites coming out of these different customs and leaving off from these heathen traits and idolatry and coming back to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, they were provoked to jealousy, because they were like, wait a minute, how y'all gotta in on this promise? Y'all ain't here, y'all ain't worshiping the Lord, y'all don't go to the temple, but you had the Israelites scattered about. And so that those so-called foolish Gentiles that drove the Israelites to anger were the Israelites coming back from this diaspora. All right. So again, watching this lesson, I wanted to kind of go into. I know we like 16 minutes in. I hope you brothers are still with me, but I kind of wanted to go into a little bit of the history of the diaspora, what I found on Google with a small Google search. So I typed in this question: how did Hellenization affect the ancient Jews? Right? It says Hellenization, or the influence of Greek culture, philosophy, and language on Jews, affected Jewish life in Judea and the diaspora. The Greeks viewed Jewish culture favorably, and Hellenism gained adherents among the Jews. Right? So the Greeks, they didn't push our culture away. At one point, the Greeks did view us favorably, mainly during the time of, what's this guy named Alexander the Great. And then obviously when Antiochus Epiphanes came up, they started the hatred. But anyway, it says, and Hellenism gained adherents among the Jews, like it says in the book of Maccabees, right? First Maccabees, in the book of First Maccabees, this is basically the start of Hellenization. This whole Maccabees, we had Israelites fighting against these Greeks and their Hellenistic ways, and then you had Israelites following after these Greeks, man. All right? It says, this is First Maccabees 1:11. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So you had Israelites that were willingly finding favor amongst the Greeks by following after their customs and making an agreement with them. Then you read about this guy, Jason, in the same precepts, the same chapter. You read about Jason, right? Where it says, verse 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. So you had Jakes that were enamored by Hellenism. It was some Jakes did it willingly, some had to be forced into Hellenization. But nonetheless, Hellenization had a huge impact on us. And mind you, this Hellenization period happened prior to the Yahushua and apostles coming on the scene. But you still had Israelites in Israel adherent to the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. But they still had to contend with that. And then on top of that, you had the Romanization of the Israelites too. The Jews. We'll say that right now. Salaki. So again, you had all these different things affecting Israel. You spoke about, Judah. I'm going to speak about the house of Judah right now. The Romanization period, and then obviously prior to that, the Greek period of Hellenization. But Hellenization was still strong back then, even during the time of Yahushua. So it says, First Maccabees 1:14, whereupon they built in a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, right? They started doing the things that the heathen do and made themselves uncircumcised. Why? Because the heathen are uncircumcised. and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Right? And that's what they did. So that was this right here. That was where we at? That was the Hellenism gained. This is why Hellenism gained adherents among the Jews. So let me read this again. Right? Hellenization, or the influence of Greek culture, philosophy, and language on Jews, affected the Jewish life in Judea and the diaspora. Right? The Greeks viewed Jewish culture favorably, and Hellenism gained adherents among the Jews. The Hellenization of the diaspora Jews reflected in their literature, papyri, and art objects. Some examples of the major literary products of the contact of Judaism and Hellenistic culture are the Septuagint, the Book of Wisdom, Sirach, Apocrypha. Right? Let me read down right here. It says, some say the Hellenization had a detrimental effect on Jews' traditional ways of life. For example, one rabbi, Elisha B., became agnostic heretic due to Greek influence. I'm not sure who this guy is. It says the Hellenistic period saw prosperity and progress in the arts, literature, theater, architecture, music, mathematics, philosophy. The Hellenistic period also saw the rise of new comedy, Alexandrian poetry, right? Epicureanism, Pyrrhonism. It says the Hellenistic influence pervaded everything. And let's look up that word to pervade, right? So it says pervaded everything, right? So how could you not believe or understand that this Hellenization affected the Israelites? They weren't even calling themselves Israelites anymore. They weren't even being associated with being Israelites because they enjoyed that Hellenization. To pervade is to become diffused throughout every part. Examples, right? So to be diffused in every part, man. That's what that means. So it says the Hellenistic influence pervaded everything, and even in the very strongholds of Judaism, it modified the organization of the state, the laws, and public affairs, art, science, industry, affecting even the ordinary things of life and the common association of people, right? So Hellenization took a great effect. So you had a lot of Israelites basically losing themselves, which that was part of prophecy. It was prophesied, Salakia. It was prophesied that what we were going to be disinherited from our heritage. Even Jeremiah was going to be disinherited from his heritage. And he was a prophet. He was doing the right thing. But guess what? He would come back in a reincarnation, and he would forget who he was. Right? He would discontinue from the land that he lived in. Right? He would discontinue from his culture. Come on, bro. Every time I'm trying to do lesson, then we gotta have these problems with this technology, bro. Jeremiah 17:5. It says, Salakia. I thought it was Jeremiah 17:5. Salakia. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 4. It says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in a land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. Right? So that's what happened. And we didn't just go into these different places, these different nations and countries, and then we would just all leave as one group of people. We didn't do that. A lot of our people stayed, and so they started adhering more and more to these nations, man. Right? It's the wonderful possession I have reserved for you will slip from your hands. I will tell your enemies to take you as captives to a foreign land. right? And we were in captives or slaves, just like we were here brought to America, right? Over here as slaves, the house of Judah, right? We're talking about the house of Judah tonight, right? So this Hellenistic period played a pivotal role in the Israelites losing who they were and are, their customs, right? It says the inscription forbidding strangers to advance beyond a certain point in the temple was in Greek. And why was it in Greek? Because you had Israelites speaking Greek, right? You had Israelites that was totally into Greek life and way of life and culture. Then you had Israelites that still followed the customs of our people, but they spoke Greek, right? So it says the inscription forbidding strangers to advance beyond a certain point in the temple was in Greek and was probably made necessary by the presence of numerous Jews from Greek-speaking countries. At the time of the festivals, the murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, Acts 6:1, which you're going to get that. The coffers in the temple, which contained the shekel contributions, were marked with Greek letters. It says, it is therefore no wonder that there were synagogues of the Libertines, Cyrenes, Alexandrians, Cilicians, and Asiatics in our holy city itself. The turbulence created by Alexander the Great's death also popularized Jewish messianism, which is a savior and liberator figure in the Jews' eschatology, who is believed to be the future redeemer of the Jews, which is Yahushua. The concept of messianism originated in Judaism in the Hebrew Bible. A Messiah is the king or high priest of Israel traditionally anointed, right? This is beautiful, man. I didn't even know all of this existed. But see, this is the reason for Paul. And I had typed this up. I had asked this question about Paul, right? I typed in, I said, how was the Jewish diaspora affected during the time of the apostles? And it says, the Jewish diaspora is the spread of Jewish communities throughout the empire. And during the time of the apostles, the diaspora was very large. By the middle of the first century, there were probably more Jews living outside of Judea than in Judea. These Jewish communities became a way to spread the good news of Yahushua HaMashiach. It says preaching. Oh, it says right here, the diaspora affected early Christianity in several ways. Pilgrimage. Diaspora communities made regular pilgrimages to the temple, which meant that Palestine was significant in Jewish identity. It says diaspora Judaism had a great missionary impact, with Jewish Christians keeping close contact with the synagogue and communities. Hellenized Jewish Christians scattered in the diaspora were persecuted and forced to choose between baptism or exile. Preaching. Hellenized Jewish Christians preached the word wherever they went. For example, Philip, a Grecian Jew. Listen to this. Philip was a Greek-speaking Jew. Preached about Hamashiach in Samaria, and people believed his message and were baptized. You see? I had found something else that I liked too. I had found something else right here. Apostle Paul ministry went out to the Israelites scattered. That's what I typed up, right? I just typed that in. And it says, listen to this. Acts 1:8, while Peter's ministry to the Jews was primarily focused in Jerusalem and Judea, Paul's ministry to the Jews was mainly to those Jews who were dispersed. So all of these so-called, I guess it took me 30 minutes to get to this juicy point right here, but it's all in the spirit. Listen to this again. While Peter's ministry to the Jews was primarily focused in Jerusalem and Judea, Paul's ministry to the Jews, because he always spoke to the Israelites. Mainly he started with the Jews in Judea. What made up the house of Judah? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the three tribes, what you call the southern kingdom. Paul's ministry to the Jews was mainly to those Jews, those Israelites who were dispersed. It wasn't to the other nations. So when we read about Paul, because that where we at, Galatians, because they love to use Galatians chapter 3, right? When we read Galatians, this was a letter to the Israelites in Galatia, right? It says, let me see if I can find that. This wasn't a letter written to heathen nations that was in Galatia. It wasn't for you to involve these other nations into this. This was for the Israelites that were the church of the Israelites that was in Galatia, right? It says Paul. This is Galatians 1:1. Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but by Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, and the heavenly Father, the power of the Father who raised him from the dead, and all the brethren which are with me unto the churches of Galatia, right? So this wasn't for see these what do you call them? What do you call those people? These so-called pastors and preachers today, vocab Malone, they use Galatians as, oh look, it's open to everybody. Salvation is for everybody. This word, because we tell the heathen that they can't be saved because they can't be saved according to the scriptures. The heathen are not going to be saved to be to enjoy the kingdom of heaven the way the Israelites are going to enjoy it. Salvation is not a universal thing. There's no such thing as universal salvation. These nations they could care less about true salvation. They're living their life here in this world. I don't care if they call themselves Christians. I don't care if they call themselves believers. These people ain't they when they think about salvation, they think of life after death. They hoping that they don't die and go to a mythical place called hell. They think that it's a long line to get into the spiritual world, what you call heaven. I mean, what you call heaven down here. But that's not the way it is. Salvation is for the Israelites. It's not for nobody else. Okay, so when we go to Galatians 3 and 28, it says, there is neither Jew nor Greek. Why did Paul say this? Because you had Greek-speaking Jews, and then you had the Jews that lived in Israel and Judea that were treating these Jews like they were that were speaking Greek, like they were offended by them, right? So he had to make a understanding. Hey, listen, there's neither Jew nor Greek. And they use this term as to emphasize opening up the salvation to all these different nations. And that's not the case. It was speaking about what? The Greek-speaking Jews. All right? So he said there is neither Jew nor Greek, neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach. Right, because we all believe in Yahweh Shai. All of us believe in Yahweh Shai. Those Jews that believe in Yahweh Shai in Judea, and the Jews living outside of Judea, which according to this, what I found, was way more people living outside of Israel, Judea, than it was living in it. But you had Jews amongst those people that believe, just like you do today. We would be considered, at one point, Gentiles. 1 Corinthians 12:1 tell you that. Because we were following, prior to waking up to the truth and hearing this gospel, we were in the world following after these idols. And that's what threw us into what you call being a Gentile, which is really Hellenism. Right? That's when so it says, there's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither bond nor free, there's neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Let me go back to this information about Paul. Again, while Peter's ministry to the Jews was primarily focused in Jerusalem and Judea, Paul's ministry to the Jews was mainly to those Jews who were dispersed. It wasn't for these other nations. Here in Rome, Paul directed his message to the Jew first for the last time. Because remember, Yahweh Shai came to his people first. But he had to direct that message to the Jews again after that. He started talking to the Israelites, the Jews that were scattered in these different places. All right, in Asia Minor. Right? Grace Bible Church of Fort Worth. Let me see what this says. I'm just going to go to it. This is where I got this clip from. But this is a hard hitter right here, bro. It says Rome. Paul's final journey as reported in the book of Acts, took him all the way to Rome, where Paul, for the third and final time, turned from the Jews to the Gentiles. Remember, these Gentiles were Israelites that were living in these other nations. If you look at a map, you can see these three turning points move gradually farther and farther away from Jerusalem. Why? Because you had Israelites living outside of Israel and Judea unto the uttermost parts of the earth, Acts 1 and 8. While Peter's ministry to the Jews was primarily focused in Jerusalem and Judea, Paul's ministry to the Jews was mainly to those Jews who were dispersed here in Rome. Paul directed his message to the Jews first for the last time. When Paul arrived in Rome, he was taken to a rented house where he was allowed to dwell with a soldier guarding him. After 3 days in Rome, Paul called the leaders of the Jews together and they arranged a time for Paul to speak to them. Notice once again, as Paul comes to Rome for the first time, what does he do? He goes to the Jews first. When they had appointed him a day, the Jewish leaders came to Paul at his lodging, where Paul explained the solemnly testified of the kingdom of the Most High, persuading them concerning Yahushua, both the law of Moses and the prophets, from morning till evening. And that's what we're doing. When this message that we're speaking about the kingdom of heaven, salvation, is going to the Israelites scattered, because we are scattered around the whole globe now. And you got Israelites looking like other nations, literally looking like these other nations, speaking in the language of these other nations, but they go back to us. All right? So these Christians think that when we speak to somebody that look like a so-called white man, Chinese man, whatever, right? First of all, through the Spirit, we find out that they're one of us. So we tell them the good news. A salvation is for you, but it ain't for all these nations. It's for the elect of Israel first. Then all Israel will get it. That's the kingdom of heaven is going to be on earth. It's not going to be in the heavens. It's not going to be in a mythical place. It ain't a building falling from the sky down to the ground. No, it's the children of Israel being renewed again and redeemed by Yahushua, the only begotten Son of Yahweh. It says the Jews' reaction was just as it had been in every place. Paul went somewhere persuaded and some disbelieved. When they did not agree among themselves, they began to depart. Before they could leave, Paul spoke one final word to them, pronouncing blindness upon them, right? Spiritually blind. Just as was prophesied in the book of Isaiah 6, 9, and 10. Paul concluded by saying, therefore let it be known to you that the salvation of the Heavenly Father has been sent to the Gentiles, and they will hear it. And those Gentiles were the Israelites dispersed around the known world then, and it's the same messages being propagated today by the apostles and the bishop elders and the brothers on down of Great Millstone. When Paul had said these words, the Jews departed, disputing greatly among themselves. Now check this out. This is the book of John 7 and 35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Because the dispersed were being called Gentiles, right? The dispersed were being called Gentiles. Why? Because we lived amongst them, right? It says in the NLT, the Jewish leaders were puzzled by this statement. Where is he planning to go, they asked. Is he thinking of leaving the country and going to the Jews in other lands? Maybe he will even teach the Greeks, right? And you had Israelites being called Greeks, right? You had Israelites that were being called Grecians. Got Acts 6 and 1. See, most people won't even sit and listen to the lesson and get no understanding. But that's okay. It's for who it's for, man. All right? It's Acts 6 and 1. And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministrations, right? And you read the word for Grecians, it says Hellenistas, or what we call Hellenistas, Hellenistes, Hellenistes, which is one who imitates the manners and customs or worship of the Greeks and used the Greek tongue. If you are a natural Greek, a natural Edomite, you at the time the Edomites were being called Greeks, right? Because they had taken over with Alexander and his 4 generals, right? But you had other they conquered nations, and those nations took on those Greek customs, worship, and their tongue. Right here it says, and used in the New Testament, Jews born in foreign lands. And this is what Apostle Gabar was speaking about in his lesson. You had Israelites being born in foreign lands. He broke down Gershom or Gawashem, which was Moses' son, who was born in a foreign land. He was born in the land of Midian, but he was still an Israelite. You see this? So it says Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. That was the issue. You see, just like you had today, you got us. We speak English and all these other foreign languages. It's even worse now because we didn't grow up at all knowing who we were. You know, we were completely detached from our nationality, our customs, the laws and commandments of the Heavenly Father, which is just a part of our customs, the promises, all of that. But now we're being brought back. And this message is going out to all the Israelites scattered abroad. Hey, look, salvation has come unto you. This is where you get Revelation 17:9. Those Israelites were Israelites coming from out of all these different nations. Revelation 7:9. Revelation 7:9. It says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. All right? And these are all Israelites that were scattered amongst these nations. Okay, these are Israelites. This is not every heathen nation. It's not these heathen nations and the natural heathen. They don't get salvation. Salvation ain't for them. The good news ain't for them. And neither are they looking for it. Neither are they interested. Right? What was I reading? I read Galatians. I read this. Acts. This is Acts chapter 2, verse 4. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. And they were speaking other languages. Not I should have bought a Honda, but I bought a Hyundai. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. All right. So you had Israelites, devout Israelites. And guess who else was a devout Israelite? Cornelius, man. So you had Israelites that were following the customs of our forefathers, but they dwelt in other lands. Then you had Israelites that were completely scattered in these other nations, and they didn't follow any of our customs. They prefer the customs that they were following of the other nations. In the NLT it says, at that time there were devout Jews from every nation living in Jerusalem. Right? And it says, and they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? Parthians, Medes, Elamites. And now you would think that these are natural heathen. No, these are Israelites that were scattered in these nations. Parthian, the Medes, and Elamites. This is Jake's from the Persian and the Mede Empire. Parthian and Medes and Elamites that were living amongst them, dwellers in Mesopotamia. These are Israelites that were coming out of the Babylonian, that were still living in Babylon and in Judea and Cappadocia and in Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, and Egypt. You had a big contingency of Israelites living in Egypt and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongue the wonderful works of the Most High. And they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying one to another, what meaneth this, man? You see? So the fact of the matter is, the diaspora created a huge pocket of Israelites. I wouldn't even say pocket, bro. It was so big. Israelites living in these different lands, following at the customs of these different nations, right? But yet the word still went out to them. You had Paul speaking to them. You had the apostles speaking to them. And just like today, you have the same men today speaking to the Israelites scattered abroad, that the Spirit will fall upon them and they will hear this word. And so I didn't want to make this long, but I found some information on the diaspora, and I hope that, you brothers and you sisters that listen and watch are edified. And if you got any questions, if you want me to look something up, just shoot me a comment on the comment board, man. Leave a comment on the comment board. Don't just say Shalom, man. Just, let me know that you watched the lesson, right? But with that, I'm going to say Shalom, on to the next. Shalom.